I'm Dan Drake on Visitor Network. With us today is Jeff Weiner, one of the members of the ownership team of the Starlight Theater.
Hi,
Jeff,
Dan.
thanks for coming.
Not a problem. Thanks for having us.
You've been through an interesting change at the Starlight, and I'd love to hear a little bit about it. First, what made you decide to go out to the public and then to raise the funds, and for what purpose? What did you need to do, first of all? Let's start with
well, at the end of last year, we were still negotiating our lease with NIR to get a few more years under our belt. And G-Man, I know around that time, had sent us an email about a theater in Washington that was on this program that did something. And it was around the holiday times and craziness of trying to get everything lined up to get a new lease. And I kind of just moved it off to the wayside. And then a friend of the Starlights came in, Jimmy Agnew, probably a couple of weeks later, and said, "You got to check out this website."
You had something in mind that you had to do.
Oh yeah, we had to come up with something. I mean, it wasn't as easy to just walk into the bank and say, "Please give us."
But you had something. Didn't you have to put in a new projector?
We had to do a new projector. Yeah,
right.
We were 35 millimeter. We had no choice but to go digital. It affected us all last year on trying to get movies. They were harder to get. They weren't making as many. Hollywood was basically trying to force you to really make it that last year before you change to digital.
And so we're talking about an expense somewhere in the neighborhood of 6 figures to do this.
Oh yeah, easily. I mean, it's almost like buying a car. I mean, you could buy a cheaper model. You're only going to get so much out of it. You could buy a used model and then have to upgrade in another year or two. There's so many different capabilities of what the projectors are capable of. So it's a matter of what you really needed. And being a small theater, we didn't need a big monster machine, but we still needed something to have a great picture and great sound at the same time. So we looked into, we thought of putting a bucket out on the concession counter and, hoping for the best. And, we looked at the banks and we pretty much knew it was going to be a lot harder than we thought. How
long is your lease?
Our lease is, we have 5 more years on our lease. Yep. So it would be a good way to get it all paid back now. So we came in, told us about this website called Kickstarter. We looked at it that night, and there was a couple movie theaters on there, like 2 or 3 of them, and it was interesting. And next thing you know, we looked at it again the next day, and there was another theater on there, and it just kept building and building with movie theaters going onto this website.
And it's a website for fundraising.
Yep, crowdfunding website. It's a new concept out there. The government doesn't know what to do with it either. I mean, it's a new concept altogether. From my understanding, it's like 40 graduates of college just recently came up with this concept in a warehouse in New York City, and it just kind of built from there. And it was more based on the arts, film and music and so on and so forth. But it kind of
I assume many of the organizations that use it to raise funds are not-for-profits.
Yes.
Which you are not.
We are a profit organization,
yeah, right.
But
that's a different question. You're not a tax-exempt organization.
No. We some days it makes you wonder if you're not-for-profit,
right.
But it is what it is. But looking into it, researched it for a couple weeks, and tried to take a little bit of every scope of what everybody was doing on there and kind of just put the wheels in the motion on how to go about really starting it. And, talk to my attorneys and so on and so forth. And, is there any legal issues about any of this? And everything was all okay. So we went for it.
And how'd you get the word out?
Well, I mean, social media definitely was a big aspect of the whole thing. I mean, between Facebook and Twitter and emails and our general customers coming in and places like Geno TV and Gene Man and all sorts of stuff. So again, watching and researching how people were getting it out there on the website, we kind of planned it and put it in, in an organized sort of way, if you will, to see where it would take us. And, we started with Facebook, and then we hit Twitter a following couple days later. Then we hit the newspaper, the Inquirer Mirror. Then we hit, we just made sure we just kept hitting all these different ways of getting it out there. And, we noticed, people who were in their late, 70s and 80s who probably don't even know about Facebook and Twitter, they weren't getting the funding that they needed. So social media was definitely a big aspect of the whole thing.
How much did you end up raising?
We were 111,000 with 739 backers altogether.
That's great.
Yeah,
it speaks very well for the community, doesn't
Oh
it?
yeah, especially in a short amount of time. I mean, we did it in 3 weeks. You know, we set our goal for 45 days, and we started on a Saturday of February school vacation, thinking, you know, crossed our fingers and said, let's hope for the best. And you know, it was just crazy. I mean, even for me, I mean, we were checking the site every 10 minutes, and then at one point, looking outside at the bar, even our regular customers, they're all got their phones and their computers out, and they're watching it like the stock market and telling us, like we didn't even have to check anymore. That everyone's texting, it just went up, it just did this. So it was a great binding thing for everybody as well, not just you know the money, but it was just brought everybody together a lot.
Then you closed down for a couple of weeks?
Yeah, it took us, we finally got it up and running. There's a couple little things we got to tweak, but it took us about 3 weeks, start to finish. A lot of hard work, couple all-nighters to pull it off.
But it's up and running and working?
It's up and running and working. It's an unbelievable, it's a totally different room with the same sort of aspects to it, the nostalgic of it. You know, we left the seats and the carpet alone, and you know, I know those are big issues with a lot of different things, but there's certain things you just have to compromise on.
Do the professionals notice a difference in the picture?
Oh yeah, it's the sound. We're ended up with 13 speakers in there now.
So the sound's probably better.
Yeah, it sounds a lot better.
What about the actual picture itself?
The picture is clear. We adjusted the screen a little bit to make it so everyone gets a great level, and we really just masked it in. And Michael Albert from Nantucket Media Systems just did a great job on the whole thing. It was his concept. He approached us on coming up with a new design for the theater. He helped us get the projector. He, you know, got the install crew to come in. So yeah, I mean, Nantucket Media Systems. The way I told him is he built a home theater for Nantucket is what it comes down to.
Let's talk for a minute about movies. What you're able to get for films to show at the Starlight, and what the limitations are on what you can get.
Well, you know, the beauty about being digital is we thought that we would have better chances of getting movies, and come to find out it's still a lot harder as it was 35 millimeter. 35 millimeter, and again, the whole process was for them, it cost them a lot of money to make the films.
Right.
And when it's digital, they can just press it on the computer, copy the thing, and send it on its way. Well, every Monday we call our booking agent up in New York City. We give them a list of movies that we would like to see at the Starlight. Dreamland does the same thing. She calls her agent, she gives them a list of things. It's all based on, of course, you know, summertime, they're blockbuster movies, you know, they're no-brainers. We know that people want to see them. But it's the art films and the independents that really bring film out.
Right.
And those are the harder ones still to get to this day, because they just don't have the budget to make thousands and thousands of copies. So, you know, we have Iron Man. It's out there. It's been, you know, it was the second highest grossing movie. And in 3 weeks, it's pushed off to the wayside, like it never even existed anymore. And let's bring on the next film. So every Monday, we put in a list of movies to our agent based on what we would like to see, being a blockbuster, independent art film, so on and so forth. And he basically breaks it down for us. It's what percentage do you want to pay back to the movie company? What percentage you want to pay as a down payment? We have 90 seats. How much do we really want to give up to do all that? And that's why we have the restaurant and bar to kind of accommodate that a little bit. So yeah, it's kind of like the stock market a little bit. You just kind of have to balance your pros and cons to where you are. We're a single screen, so sometimes we have to play 3 weeks straight of a movie. We can't play anything else. And those are set by the movie companies. It's not us, it's not the agent, but that's what the movie company wants. And that's why they thrive on multiplexes, because they can pick 13, 14 different screens and not worry about it. But single screen theaters are hard to come by.
If it were financially feasible, do you think people would come out and look at the quote art films and foreign films?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially, I mean, even in the winter where it's, you know, it's a good night out to have a dinner and a glass of wine or a beer and go in to see a movie that you normally wouldn't. And I think those are the ones that you tend to see a lot clearer of what film really is. I mean, movies like Iron Man, there's action going on and there's stuff going on all over, but there's a different aspect of filmmaking in that. You know, you got stunts and explosions and so on and so forth, where the other ones, you got just great, you know, storylines.
Well, The Starlight is a great story in itself of both some dedicated entrepreneurs and a community that rallied around it.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great support. I mean, really, we crossed our fingers when we hit that button to do the Kickstarter, and it worked, and I hope everyone comes in to enjoy the films.
Jeff Weiner from the Starlight Theater, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan.